Excuse me. Hi, this is Professor McLaughlin with a introductory lecture on Chapter 13, which is the first of a series of chapters on contracts. Contracts are agreements. Contracts are very much like crimes in this way. Contracts require certain elements to be met, and if they're not met, then it's not a valid contract. Just like in criminal acts, if one of the elements of the crime is missing, the individual cannot be charged with the crime. So if a battery is a unwanted physical contact, and you have contact that is through consent or invited, then that is not a battery. So contracts, I want you to think about it in the same way that when you look at hypotheticals and when you read through the book and the cases, that you're looking at what element is being discussed, what element is potentially missing or defective so that it went into dispute. And then you may not have a valid contract. So the second half of that is going to be, let's say you do have a valid contract, but it's not enforceable. So that's a secondary question. You can have a valid contract and it may not be enforceable for a number of reasons. And so once again, I invite you to think about contracts and look at the slides. I think the slides in this chapter and actually in all the contracts chapters provide a great basis for an outline for understanding contracts and understanding how they're structured. You need to know all the elements of the contract, know how they're defined under the law, know if a valid contract has been created, and then in a secondary way, ask if that contract is enforceable. So for these chapters, I also would like you to think of yourself frequently in the shoes of the court. You aren't, sometimes in torts, myself and students identify with the weaker party or the hurt party or the injured party. And in products liability, you get mad at the bad manufacturer who made a product that hurt us. But here, I want you to take a step back and always look at contracts from the eye of the court in a very dispassionate way. We don't really care if the contract makers are having a rough time at home, if they are, if business is bad. Sometimes we care about that, but for the most part, we really only care objectively about contracts. So it makes it a really interesting area of the law. Contracts and sales and leases, which you get to in Chapter 21, are very objective. And so you don't get a lot of drama. You don't get a lot of stories of parties who you don't need the context, or rather in U.S. law, we don't allow the context. And so that is the basis for much of contract law in the United States. Another fundamental way of thinking about contract law, which is different from the rest of the world, is that courts want to enforce the contract. There are numerous equitable remedies that even though contracts were imperfectly formed, the courts have come up with theories that allow them to find a valid contract and then hold it enforceable. And you won't see that in English contract law, and you won't see it in European contract law either. So in the United States, there's a pro-business feel to how courts enforce contracts. And that's not to say if you were an individual, the court would look at you any differently. It's just that courts want to hold contracts valid and enforceable, obviously with limitations. So I'm telling you the general trend. So look at these chapters and read these cases as if you were sitting in the seat of the court, and look for the elements of the contract, a valid contract, and then decide if it's enforceable. Okay, let me forward these slides. So, a contract is defined as a legally enforceable agreement. So, it can't be illegal, and it has to be enforceable, and there must be an agreement, which means there's probably 2 or more parties, unless you are entering into a contract with yourself, which you might do, but that won't be legally enforceable. So what are the elements required for contract formation? First, you need an agreement. An agreement has 2 elements, an offer and acceptance. Someone has to communicate an offer, and it can't be a joke. It has to be an offer where the offeror is willing to be bound by all the terms of the offer. And then acceptance is assent to all of those terms. So I offer to sell you I have such boring examples. I have to come up with something interesting. But I offer to sell you my laptop for $250. And you say, that's awesome, Professor McLaughlin. I would like to buy your laptop for $250, and I would like that external hard drive I always see you bring to class because I need some extra storage space. So that's offer, but is that acceptance? Is that a willingness to be bound by all the terms in the offer and assent to that? No. You added some additional terms. You want my external hard drive. So now it's a counter offer. So now you have offered to buy my laptop for $250 if I throw in the external hard drive. And now it's my turn to accept and assent and agree to all those terms. And if I say yes, then we have an agreement. That's all we have. We just have an agreement. And an agreement alone only gives you part of a contract. You also need what we call mutual consideration. And that is value exchanged by both parties. So if I say, I want to give you my laptop for free, that's a gift. And if I tell you, come to my office on Friday, I'm going to give you my laptop. And you come to my office on Friday, and I'm there, and you knock on the door, and I'm like, what? And you're like, you said if I came to your office on Friday, you'd give me your laptop. I'm like, oh, I changed my mind. And can you sue me? Was there an agreement? So maybe there was an agreement for you to come to my office and see if the gift was still available, but it was completely gratuitous because there was no value given by both parties. The value was one-sided. I was going to give you my laptop, which is valuable. Now, what if you say, but yeah, I took the day off and my time is valuable and I drove to IVC and I showed up at the time we agreed. Isn't that something? Isn't that the value that I gave? And the court's typically going to say no, because most likely it won't be value recognized by the law. Sorry, I don't know how loud that is. I'll try and talk louder than that truck that's outside my window. It needs to be value that's recognized by the law. And if you were a lawyer, or if you charged by the hour, and maybe if you lost some business because you wanted to come get the laptop at my office, even then the court's not going to find that a valuable exchange, a bargained for exchange. So be carefully about consideration in the book. It needs to be bargained for. It needs to be something, an exchange of something of value. I give you my laptop, you give me money. And it doesn't have to be high value. So it's not so much the value has to equal the laptop. I could sell you my laptop for $50. The $50, and you're losing that $50 and gaining a laptop. Me losing the laptop and gaining $50 is enough to make valid consideration. What I want you to see is that me gifting you the laptop does not make consideration, so that's not a binding contract that you can sue under. Okay, so legal purpose and subject matter, pretty straightforward. You can't have an enforceable, valid contract that concerns a bank robbery where you're going to be. The truck now has to go back past my window again. I apologize. So it can't be a contract where you're the getaway driver and we all agree to split the bank robbery 4 ways. There's 4 of us. You're the 4th. And we have a successful bank robbery and we get back to our hideout and we're like, what? You get 5% because all you did was drive the car and we were in there getting the money. You can't sue over that. So legal purpose, no drugs, no crimes. Now, it gets interesting because what happens if it was legal when you entered into the contract and it became illegal, either the purpose or the subject matter? Someone either criminalized it or you entered into a contract with a business in a country that in the middle of the contract performance we no longer recognize, or where there's an embargo or there's a war. Interesting stuff. Okay, and then final element required for contract formation for a valid contract is legal capacity. So we've seen this in numerous chapters. There must be a legal ability to enter into a binding contract. Okay, so how do you defend against the enforcement of a contract? So 2 big areas, lack of genuine assent and lack of proper form requirement. And form requirement doesn't mean that you downloaded the wrong form off the interweb. Form refers to the formality required. Does it need to be in writing? Does the law require that it state certain terms specifically? Does the law require that it have an acknowledgement or an affidavit or a declaration, or have certain things that some financial instruments which have contractual aspects to them? The Uniform Commercial Code requires that they look in a particular way. So form requirement has to do with the structure of the writing or the agreement. So let's go back. Lack of genuine assent, fraud, duress, undue influence, and misrepresentation. So similar to crimes, these attack a mental state and also get you out of enforcement of a contract if you were lied to. So fraud and misrepresentation, I lied to you about the nature of the contract, the object of the contract, the actual circumstances of the contract. It was misrepresentation, deceit, fraud in order to get money out of you. You can't be bound by that contract if deceit was used to induce you to enter into the contract. Then duress and undue influence. So this goes to kind of diminishing how genuine your agreement was if someone's forcing you into it, if someone is making threats or have a lot of power over you, and you enter into a contract, that defeats or diminishes the acceptance and the genuineness of your assent. So proper form requirements, statute of frauds, we get into that in Chapter 21. Is it a contract that had to be in writing according to the law, or is it a contract that had to have certain things? So in the U.S. and in many parts of the world, you can have an oral agreement. It never needs to be signed. It doesn't need to be dated. Those are formality requirements. But some contracts, in order to avoid fraud, as you see in Chapter 18, must be in writing. And that's the form requirement. Okay, just kind of the overall approach to contract law is objective. So we don't really look at individual intent. We simply look at, was there a contract based on a demonstration of an intent to be bound, and the reasonable person standard is applied, which means we don't look at the specific circumstances. We just say, well, how would a reasonable person have shown agreement? How would a reasonable person have expressed this offer? And we don't look at special circumstances. So objective theory of contracts is very important. It's how courts approach contract law, but it's also how the law approaches contracts. So where do you find contract law? Two big areas. State common law, which means state case law. Cases decided over and over again with precedent and stare decisis. What do those words even mean? Where I'm a court and I have to follow what previous courts said and decided. So state common law, California common law, not federal law. There is no federal common law. And then Uniform Commercial Code, Article 2. And the Uniform Commercial Code you've seen in some of your earlier chapters. So now let's talk about the classification of contracts. How are contracts classified? Lots of different ways. To begin with, you can have a bilateral contract, which we were talking about, an exchange of promises. Or you can have a unilateral contract, which is a promise in return for performance of a particular act. So the best example of a unilateral contract is a reward poster. So I want you to find my dog Fluffy. If someone returns my dog Fluffy, I will pay them $25,000. So what if somebody comes to my office and says, oh, Professor McLaughlin, I saw the poster. I'm so sorry you lost Fluffy. I promise to return Fluffy to you. I can't wait to get the $25,000. And I just look and smile and kick you out of my office. Do we have an agreement? Was there an exchange of promises? Didn't you say you promise to find my Fluffy? Well, what is acceptance in the situation of a reward poster? Acceptance is only by delivery of that which was lost. So reward poster requires that you go find Fluffy and return Fluffy. Only then do I give you the $25,000. You have not promised. All you've really done is promise to look for Fluffy, which gets you a pat on the back, but definitely not the $25,000 until Fluffy's in my hands. So look out for unilateral contracts, reward posters, or situations where I say I'll pay you $5 to cross. I'll pay you $5 to take the ferry. I'm so not from here, but whatever that ferry is that you go near Balboa. So there's some ferry and you ride it. And I say, I'll pay you $5 and I'll pay your ticket for the crossing. And you cross over and there's that amusement area there, Balboa Pier. and this is on a Friday. Then Monday morning you come in and you're like, I want my $5. And I'm like, well, did you do it? And I had asked you to take pictures. And you're like, well, I got halfway across and, I didn't really feel like going to the amusement area. So I jumped off the ferry and I swam back. So I made it halfway. Can you give me $2.50? And I'm like, no, because this is a unilateral contract where promise is in return for performance of an act, and the performance of the act was taking the ferry all the way across. Now, do you have a argument that you substantially performed? You went halfway. Don't I owe you something for substantial performance? So that's a contract concept that overlaps with bilateral contracts as well as unilateral contracts. What does it mean if you haven't fully performed what you said you do under a contract, but you substantially performed? What if you perform 90% of what you said you would do? Now that doesn't work really with a reward poster. If you brought back 90% to Fluffy, just don't want to talk about that. But that could be for delivery of widgets. I asked you for 100,000 and you delivered 90,000. Can you demand full payment? And what if I say you breach, I'm not paying you anything? Can you say, well, you substantially performed and you just want payment for 90%? What would the court say? So think about these concepts. It's in the chapter. Okay, so more classifications: an express contract, contract written or spoken, or an implied contract, a quasi-contract. So these are implied contracts are part of the equitable theories I was telling you about, where the court really wants to find a contract valid and binding. And so came up with a equitable or a fairness theory saying, in certain cases, in order to avoid someone from being unjustly enriched, we really have to find that there was a contract here. And it's not a full contract, but based on conduct or actions, people were really acting like they were in a contract. So we're going to find a contract here. And that's typically in a situation where one party is trying to say there was no contract and another party says there was a contract. Okay, a couple more definitional terms. Contracts as valid, void, or voidable. So a valid contract has all the elements. And contract formation was satisfied, so it's a valid contract. A void contract is a zero. There was some illegal purpose or subject matter that made that contract unenforceable. And then a voidable contract is where one or both of the parties can withdraw from the contract at a moment in time. At that moment, the contract is voidable. If that moment passes and both parties move together hand in hand in the future, performing under the contract, then the contract becomes valid again. So read in the chapter on this. This has a time element to it. Contracts, it's very important in contracts when people did things. Was it timely? When did it happen? And a voidable contract can be reaffirmed and then it becomes a valid contract. But a voidable contract is a contract that one party is permitted to withdraw, either because the other party breached or some other reason. They validly can get out of the contract without breach. It's voidable at that moment. And then if parties move forward through action, and you don't necessarily have to rewrite a contract or make a big declaratory statement that, I reaffirm the contract. It could just be through action. That contract becomes valid. Okay, more classifications of contracts. You have an executed contract. All terms are fully performed. I sell you my laptop, you buy my laptop, I deliver it, you give me the cash, boom, executed. But what if on Monday I say, I want to sell you my laptop for $250, and you say, okay, I'll meet you Saturday in the parking lot of Irvine Valley College, and we'll exchange there. So Monday until Saturday, when performance is due, that contract is executory. It is yet to be fully performed. Some duties have not been performed. It could be both. It could be just one party. So I could give you my laptop on Monday and say, I understand you get paid on Friday. Come to my house with cash Saturday morning. So now that's still an executory contract. You have the laptop, but I'm still awaiting payment. It's still executory, waiting to be executed. And this status becomes important when you look at bankruptcy law, or any moment in time where you are looking at your assets. When a company is trying to determine if performances are due them, whether you call it a receivable or what. But for individuals going into bankruptcy, you have to declare if a contract, what if you owe under a contract that's executory. So these are important statuses to understand about contractual relationships. Okay, so a couple more ideas about classification of contracts. Contracts can be formal or informal. Formal contracts, I want you to think of things where banks are involved, a negotiable instrument, a mortgage, a loan, a line of credit, and these are all important for businesses. That has to meet form requirements, okay, formalities, signature, particular forms to comply with banking and uniform commercial code. That's a formal contract. And then informal contracts, it's simple. No formalities required to enter into it. So the final two slides, I'm not going to lecture a long time on. I want you to take a look at it. This is to give you some guidance on how courts interpret contracts. So there are, just like the objective theory of contracts, there are ways that the U.S. court system and the contract law in the United States approaches how contracts will be interpreted. Because by the time you need to interpret a contract, there's a dispute. So you have party A and party B, and sometimes more than just A and B, saying, oh, we meant this, or we meant that. This was ambiguous, so we thought it meant this, or we thought it meant that. And so these last two slides talking about the interpretation of contracts. For example, if a contract contains ambiguity, the judge is going to interpret it against the interest of the drafter. So if you wrote the contract and you're claiming it's ambiguous, no. You wrote it, okay? So it's going to be interpreted against whatever you're arguing. And so take a look at these. I think these are important. They give you a great insight into how judges and courts look at contracts. And that's always important for us as business people and for you as lay people, non-lawyers, to understand how your contracts are going to be viewed. And I'm going to leave it at that. So I will either see you in the classroom or continue to see you online. Thank you.